Hi everyone. Today we are going to set up a database in Microsoft Access. We will begin by creating three tables and setting up the relationships among them. Firstly, we will open Microsoft Access. Here you are prompted to select the type of database. Choose blank desktop database and now you are required to navigate to where you wish to save your database. So I am going to call my database Student Management System. And I'm going to navigate to a specific folder. I select Create. Before we start, please understand that an entity is basically anything you wish to store data on. An entity could be physical, such as a person, a house, a car, or it could be conceptual, such as a grade or a transaction. And tables consist of data about an entity. So a table stores multiple occurrences of an entity. So that basically refers to multiple records. We are now going to set up our entity student as a table. To set up the first table, you will need to go to Design View. So I just went to Design View. I click on Design View. Be prompted to save your table first. So we will save as student. I will click OK. Now we will enter the required fields. So I'm going to start with student ID. I will leave it as auto number. Then I will enter student first name. And I will set this as short text. I will then enter student last name. I'll leave it as short text. Then I will select, or I will enter student date of birth. I will set this as date or time. Then I will enter student address. I will leave this as short text. Then I will set a class. And I will leave this as short text. Now every table will need a primary key, and this primary key will be used to uniquely identify every record in the table. To set a primary key, you simply highlight the field and you check the primary key button. Now, Microsoft Access, by default, they assign the first field as the primary key. All right. However, if I need to get multiple fields to form a primary key, I will select all the fields that I need by pressing Control and clicking on the other field. And I will check the primary key icon on the ribbon. All right. For this example, student ID will be just fine. So I will take off student first name and being the primary key. So to do that, I will select the field and I will check it off from the ribbon. So let me just set back student ID. Good. Okay, so now I am going to close this off. We will be prompted to save. And now I am going to open my student table in the grid view. So notice that with the student date of birth field, I have a calendar. That is because I selected the date and time, or date or time field, data type. And for class and student address, let's track this out a little bit. And student last name, student first name, I have to enter my data into this field. Now, let us go back to design view. And I am going to show you how to set up a lookup wizard. All right, now this will allow you to get a list of default values or data in the field rather than the user having to enter that data all the time. All right, so the whole point about it is to minimize data entry. So what I will do is I will type in the values that I want. So I click on this radio button and now I click next. Now I'm going to, for the sake of this example, I am going to enter some classes for my students. So I'm going to enter Form 1, Form 2, Form 3, Form 4, and Form 5. Okay, so now I am going to click on next. And I'm going to limit to the list. I do not want to allow multiple values. I will select finish. And now when I close and I'm prompted to save and I open back and the data sheet view, you will see the data items that I entered before. All right, now I would like to add one more field called student contact number. And let's set this as short text and I will close. Of course, it's going to prompt me to save. I will select yes. And let us open back. And you will see under the last field that I just created, I could just simply type in the number. However, it would be useful if I have a format for or a template for this data. All right, so I'm going to open in design view. And I am going to add I'm sorry. I'm going to select the field and under general in the field properties, there is a field called Input Mask. I'm going to click on it and select the three dots to open up the window. So in the Input Mask wizard, I am going to double click phone number because this is the template that I want. Now, if I want to change the format, I will put in the template here, but this is fine for me. So what I will do is I will just try it out. 8, or essentially a random number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. And I will click next. Now, if I would like to modify this a little bit, I could, let's say I do not want to put in the international code. I will remove that. And let's try it out. Okay, now it's asking me if I would like to include the symbols in the input mask or not include it. And I would like to include the symbol. And then I will click next. And I will click finish. So now we will save. And we will go back to the datasheet view. And when I go to student contact, now it has a particular format. All right, so I will close this off. And now we will set up another table called the teacher table. So I go to create on the ribbon and I could go directly to table from here. And I would like to go to the design view of the table. So it's prompted me to save again. And I select teacher. I'm sorry, I type in teacher. And then I click OK. And now we do the same thing all over again, but for teacher this time. So now I'm going to enter teacher ID. I will leave this as auto number. However, you could select other fields as well. It's just that with auto number, the number increments every time a new record is added. So it makes it easier if it is that it's a simple system you're working with. All right, so we will move on to the next field. So I will type in teacher's first name. I will leave this as short text. Then I will type in teacher's last name. Short text. And I will put in teacher's contact number. Okay, so again, we will create an input mask for this. So I will go to input mask under field properties for the teacher contact number field, and I will go to these three dots. I must save first, so I am going to select phone number. Now, because I removed the international area code from the student table, I will do so here. I will try it out. So it's working. I will click on next. I will select the same format. I will click on next and I finish. Good. So now we will set up our class table. So I save and I move on to create table design. So notice I'm showing you different ways to access the different objects in the database management system or Microsoft Access, right? So now I will set up my class table. Okay, so now we are going to set up our class table. So I will go to Create, Table Design, and now I'm going to enter class ID. Now notice here I went straight into table design. So the primary key wasn't set up there for me by default. All right, so we will just create it in a second. I would like to have this field be an auto number, and then we will have class date, which would be of data type date of time. Then we'll have period or session. I will change this to session. I believe this is short text. And we will have student ID. And we will have teacher ID. Okay, so I want you to note that the student ID and the teacher ID in the student and teacher table were of type auto number. And we need to get the data types to be the exact type as much as possible. So for that reason, we will change this to number. It's not auto number, but it is the closest field that we could get. This is so that when you set up your relationships among the tables, the relationships will work properly. Okay, so seeing as in our example, we will have 5 sessions for the day, I will set up a lookup wizard instead of leaving it as short text. All right, so I will type in the values that I want, and I will select 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I click on next. I will limit the list. I will not allow multiple values, and I will finish. Okay. Now I will have to save my table. So I will call this class. Okay, so I got the message that there is no primary key defined. Now, a primary key is important to uniquely identify every record. So they're asking if I would like to create a primary key now. Yes. Please note that primary keys ensure entity integrity. Now, in the class table, we have student ID and teacher ID. These are foreign keys. A foreign key is a primary key in another table. Right? And foreign keys ensure what we call referential integrity. So now we are going to set up the relationships among our tables. we created the parent tables first before creating the link table. So in our case, the parent tables were student and teacher. The parent tables consisted of it contained the primary keys. However, the link or the child table will consist of the primary key as well as foreign keys. So in this case, student ID and teacher's ID. Now we are going to set up the relationships among the table. So I will select database tools on the ribbon. And then I will select relationships. Now the show table window is visible here. And we will add all the tables that we created earlier. So I will select that and click add. Okay, let us set up our tables where we have the parent tables on the outside and we have the link table or the child table in the middle. And now what we are going to do is drag the student ID field from the student table. So you'll click and drag to the student ID field in the class table. I'm going to check referential integrity, cascade update, and cascade delete. Cascade update and delete refers to actions being performed on the child table when the child data when the parent data is updated or deleted. Okay, so now I will click on create and we have our first relationship. This is called a one-to-many relationship between the student and the class table. This means that one student could have many classes. And now we are going to do the same for the relationship between teacher and class. So I'm going to click on class ID and drag it to click on teacher ID and drag it to teacher ID in the class table. Then I'm going to check referential integrity, cascade update, and cascade delete. And then I will click on create. So now you have your database set up with your tables and your relationships. I will close and save. We can now enter some data. So I will start with the parent tables first. I am going to enter a record, John Smith. Okay, let's assume this person was born in 2005 today. So I will enter the student address. I will give this person an address, and I will select the class and student contact information. I will just enter a random number. now I will close and then I will move on to teacher. Now, when you enter your data, the information on the table updates automatically. All right, so now I'll move on to the teacher and I will enter teacher first name for Jane. Jane Singh and the contact number. Okay, so now I can select class date and I can select today's date, session number 3, and I can select student ID 1, and that's it. Now let us enter another record. So I'm going to enter the teacher's video. Bridgemohan. And I will enter a random number. Good. So I will close this. The data will be updated automatically. Now I will go to student. And here I can add another record from student. So class date would also be today. Session could be session 4. Teacher ID would be teacher ID 2. So now what this is saying is that the student John Smith will have 2 classes, one taught by teacher ID 1 and another taught by teacher ID 2. So now I'm going to close and let us enter let us look at our data in the class table. Later, you will be introduced to the feature forms, which will make data entry easier. Okay, thanks a lot. Bye.